this is the library copy. There's a copy out here. There's a copy in the library. There are lots of books about Charlie Russell for sale in the shop. There are also books about Charlie Russell in the library, and probably in the Teton County Library, because he's that well known. And then you all have this one, so read that and I'll give you a nice quick overview. In here, again, more sections divided up into different areas of specialty that Russell was known for. Bison hunts, as I said, he did 75 buffalo hunts over the course of his career. And you can see here, especially this and that, similar. You know, he's kind of working on where can I put the buffalo, where can I put the hunter, how's that relationship going to work. But it should remind you of an exhibit that we had last summer, which was George Catlin. So George Catlin, Carl Weimar, Peter Rindesbacher, Carl Bodmer, all those earlier, one generation earlier, those are the guys who cemented this Indian hunting buffalo kind of scene in terms of the iconography of it and the power of it. And so when you see these works, you can tell that Russell was looking at those other artists or reproductions of them, or even works that people had done after them that he then saw. It's just a continuation of that very iconic setup. In this case, he's got Native Americans hunting with guns, which Catlin didn't do. In that case, he's got the bow and arrow. Yeah, so that's bow and arrow. That's guns. This is spears. This I like in between these two because, again, you can see the development of his style to a certain degree. This one's dated, 1891. This is 1898. And if you look closely, you can see the skill really coming out in a work like this. And it's a little bit more complicated composition. You don't just have the buffalo going this way and the horse going that way. You've got nice foreshortening coming out. Buffalo's attacking the horse. This guy's laid out this way. He's coming in. So there's all those kind of different dynamic lines that are at play in this work. Something I hadn't mentioned in other tours, but which is a good thing to point out. This is called Pablo's Buffalo Hunt. The Pablo Allard herd of buffalo was one of the last remaining kind of genetically pure herds of buffalo. It was in Montana. They rounded it up at a certain point and sent many of them to Canada. So this is a roundup of that herd, 1909, and that, according to Byron Price, is Charlie Russell painting himself, taking part in the roundup, not hunting, but a roundup. What Charlie Russell is best known for today, and what he became incredibly famous for during his lifetime, were these predicament paintings. And so, in a predicament, it's like our grizzly bear painting, where a narrative has been set up, you're in the middle of it, and you don't know what's going to happen. That's half the fun, or all the fun of them, really. And so these are three prime examples. We were really lucky to get them because people did not want to let them out of their collections or their museums because people love these paintings. So this one we only have for this venue. Those two are traveling on, which is really, really fantastic. And again, these, like we said with those titles in there, the titles are really funny and important. And this one has 3 different titles that we know of. And again, it's kind of a tongue twister for me. Man's weapons are useless when nature goes armed. So the skunks are armed with their smell, and if you startle them in any way, they're going to stink up your entire camp. I was looking more closely at this morning. That's probably like a slab of bacon right there, and he's tipped over the pot, which may have some beans and maybe some cornbread or something in there. You've got all these little camp details, like they've been chopping wood for the fire, and there's the axe, there's their camping gear. Just all kinds of great stuff like that. Another fun thing to look for that Charlie Russell did very well was paint textiles and fabrics. So this has got a great blanket or a robe. Here's a nice jacket right here. And these guys are in the kind of gear you would have worn if you were out hunting, not necessarily the kind of gear that the classic cowboy wears. So he paid really close attention to that. And there's beautiful leggings on the Native American guy over there. This guy has a great jacket, similar. He might have had this in his studio and used it, as a prop. He's got the hobnailed boots on, the lace-up boots, not cowboy boots. And the same is true in that one over there. These are the same kind of boots that Rungus painted himself in that self-portrait in the other gallery. This another classic predicament painting called Whose Meat? The hunter presumably has shot this bighorn sheep, and the sheep has gone down off the trail a little bit. There's a little blood in the snow you can see, and then along comes the grizzly bear, and so who's going to get the meat in the end is still up for debate. And like we were saying before about the precipice and that added sense of drama, they are on this skinny trail. There's this, what looks like a big drop-off over here. You've got rocks and stuff sliding down the slope. So it's a precarious situation. Beautiful landscape, sunlight, and then we were talking about the moon earlier, beautiful moon in that painting. Really nice atmosphere. But yeah, not a lot of sky. That has more of your classic kind of horizon line. But again, there's like a lot of smoke and dust and stuff in there. It's an interesting point. Final predicament painting. Look at this guy's cool jacket that he's wearing, and these beautiful robes on the saddle blankets on the horses. Those same kind of boots. This one is a little bit sadder, called Crippled But Still Coming, or A Dangerous Cripple. I think the story would be that he has shot the grizzly bear maybe in the back, and so his rear legs are clearly not working, but his front legs are, and he's coming after this guy, and he's really mad. So, again, you've got all this motion going downhill, rocks are flying. These guys might fall over this precipice, so a lot of those classic elements are in this work as well. These three paintings were painted in 1913, 1914, 1916, so within 3 years of each other. So this was, you could say, his peak period. He's painting a lot of these great works and getting a lot of recognition for it. As you know too from our collection, we have a great illustrated letter. We decided not to put it out in this section, partly because of room, but also so that we could save it in terms of light exposure so we could send it to other venues. We do have it, reproduction of it, right here on this great table where you're invited to make your own illustrated letter and your own logo, create your own little insignia. So these are fun to read to his different friends during his lifetime. This one in particular, he's at the St. Louis Fair, I think, on the eve, right before it opens. And so that's what this little picture is right here. It says St. Louis, Missouri right there. And then there's just little funny scenes throughout that one. And then the last section is this, which is the sculpture. He started doing sculpture again after he met Nancy Russell. He was known for his sculpting abilities way before this. There's a famous story where you would be talking to him and he would be standing there and doing something in his pocket, and then he would bring out like a little bear cub that he had sculpted for you. And then he might do something else, stand there for a minute and not look at what he was doing at all, and bring out a little mountain goat or something like that. So those were little wax or clay figures, and he did that all the time for fun, but also then he could do something like that and study it and then put it in a painting. So we got the wax ones are really fragile, very delicate, and no one wanted to lend them to us, except for one place. The Autry lent us their mountain goat, which is a beautiful little plaster right here. So that's a great kind of a coup for us. And it's teeny tiny, but it's really fun to look at. So he was doing these kinds of little wax and clay sculptures throughout his life. It wasn't until the early 1900s that he started doing bronzes, 1905. And then once he started doing them, I think about half of them ended up being animal-related subjects. So he did 46 bronzes, and about 23 were animal-related. He loved to do bears. I think artists throughout time have found bears to be a good comedic foil. So these little bear families are always getting into these funny situations. This is called the lunch hour. They've got the bears looking under the rock there, which you'll recognize from the great Bob Kuhn paintings of digging for marmots. You've got 3 different depictions of bear families here. Mountain Mother in the back. Weapons of the Week, another funny kind of predicament situation where these guys, the bear family, is looking down at this little porcupine walking by. They're all very scared. They're hunched up on top of the rock. And then this one, Oh Mother, What Is It? You have the bear family looking across at an animal that we're not quite sure what it is. You can make a guess. It's not a beaver. It's not a porcupine. Anyway, some small little rodent creature. This great piece called The Bluffers, he likely did for himself as a model for a painting, and then Nancy Russell cast it after he passed away. But still a great example of his sculptural work. One of the bigger wildlife pieces that we have in the show. And again, just from the title, it gives you so much more of a sense of the narrative and the story. These two, maybe they're going to fight, maybe they're not, maybe they're bluffing, you don't really know. And then these wolves are also really great and maybe have a little bit of a darker sensibility to them than the bears. The bears might be cuter and funnier, the wolves a little bit darker. So this is called The Last Laugh. You've got a wolf looking down at a human skull. You've also got, in the back there, to noses that read, a smell that spells man. There's a wolf looking at a whiskey bottle, which has been left on the desert floor. And then the last one is an enemy that warns, and you have the wolf standing over a bison skull, which we know is the insignia for Charlie Russell, but then out of the skull is coming a rattlesnake. So the rattlesnake is the enemy that warns because he's got the little rattle happening. So that's kind of a quick overview of each section. We've got the letter-making station. We've got this slideshow is courtesy of the C.M. Russell Center. They sent us a bunch of files of illustrations and paintings that have been reproduced in posters. So as this cycles through, you'll just see a bunch more of his work. Right now, it says, touch the screen to advance the slides more rapidly, and that isn't working, but it's just kind of a nice added feature, and it'll slowly go through a bunch more work. So that is about all I can remember to say. If anyone has any questions, I can try to answer them.
How often do the works come up for sale? I mean, are these pieces ever sold at auction? I mean, that
very rarely. So it would be really hard to build a super Charlie Russell collection today. Small things come up, like those drawings and illustrations. Those might come up more frequently. Watercolors every once in a while. Bronzes fairly often because there's maybe 20 casts of them, so they come up every once in a while. But in terms of paintings,
they're in museums.
They're in museums. They're in private collections. The most recent one was probably 5 or 6 years ago.
Are there any that are larger? Did he do larger?
There are a few larger, but this is pretty. Those are canvas size. Those are pretty much the same size, and I think that was a preferred size that he came upon in that period of his career. It's not 30 by 40, but it's close to that. 30 by 40 is a pretty standard size. I think they're maybe 30 by 48, so they're a little longer, maybe like that, so you could draw out these beautiful diagonal lines and increase the drama in them.
Can you identify the place where these were painted? I mean, do you know if this is the Rocky Mountains in Montana?
Probably Glacier, yeah. Probably
Glacier.
up there in Glacier.
Okay.
I bet someone who knew Glacier could tell you what this is right up here. Because it looks similar.
Yeah.
But again, like that is, the point is that he's high up in the mountains. And he probably took inspiration from Glacier and the Rocky Mountains in Montana in particular. But that wasn't the main point.
Did he use a camera? Did he use a camera?
I bet he did. That's another thing I don't know.
Julie's gonna find out, she's going to Great Falls. There's your second sign, right?
How did he end up in Montana? Did he use a camera? Okay.
There are a lot of great photos of him, and there's some funny photos of him posing, so I'm sure he did use a camera, as most artists would have at that point. There was one I came across. He was a great, funny guy. And if you haven't been to the museum in Great Falls, you should make an effort. The Catlin exhibit is going to be there this summer.
The same show that was here last year?
Yep. Catlin show is going to be there in June, July, August, I think. Yeah, and this show will be there next summer. So.
I was told if you looked around through his paintings in the detail, you might find a whiskey bottle. That he did that very often.
There's Catlin right there.
Yeah.
I bet you might be able to find one in that
Maybe,
camp scene.
Yeah, camp.
Maybe in some of the
He often did
illustrations.
that.
Yep. It's quite likely. Yeah, or flying out of this guy's hat. Who knows?
I was curious about the use of the color red.
Mhm.
That is the color that the hunters wore. It was also to draw your eye in with just these four, for instance.
Yep.
And he's in the red.
Yeah. And it definitely reminds me, again, of more hunting camp gear than cowboy gear, and also maybe a little bit more that Canadian, French-Canadian influence that you would have had probably more in Montana than you necessarily would have had in Wyoming. But yeah, just he really paid really close attention to these things, and so these elements of their outfits were probably quite realistic and represent what people were actually wearing out there. And today, if someone is doing that, they might just put them in kind of Western gear because it was kind of Western painting, but these guys weren't out there doing cowboy stuff, they're out there doing camping stuff.
So do you want to comment on the accuracy of the gestures and positions in these situations, of the horses and the man and so forth? Because I read somewhere a long time ago that he was respected because he looked so closely at the cowboys and in action that he had it
Right.
every detail, like the foot in the stirrup and the
Yep.
horse's
No, I think
legs are
definitely.
absolutely perfectly done.
What I said maybe in one of the other tours was just you could feel that emotion, that rush of this horse. Even when you get startled and you shy away from something, your whole body reacts, and you can see he's got that down. His sense by this point in his career, his ability to depict accurate anatomy and motion is just unparalleled, and so that is what people respond to. Yeah, all of these things, and then the ability to not only depict those actions accurately, but create a composition that makes sense and is pleasing and does what you want it to do is another, ability that very few people have. Like this, everyone's kind of, this guy's going that way, he's coming out here, he's going down there. All those lines really make sense reacting to this guy. And what I like about this one is this circle that's happening. And is that probably because, yes, because there's a rope that's attached to the saddle horn that's then going back past the saddle and pulling this guy back as he's trying to run off this way. And then he's going to pull back, and then this guy's getting pulled that way. So, you know, he's not as well regarded as he is because he didn't know what he was doing. He really, by this point, knew what he was doing and is highly regarded for it. So, and especially in these three in our bear painting, we really got some key masterworks of Charlie Russell.
Thanks, Adam.
Very